Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker. There's Katinka Lingeroth. Welcome to the show. PJ Schuster is here. Hello, Pamela's here. We welcome you to the Friday edition of the Trump Tyranny
Mo is
Tracker.
here, the love of my life. She's my former
Oh,
co-host
oh,
for
really?
Kremlin File.
Oh,
And
hi.
I saw her name. Mo.
Great. She should come on the show one of these days.
Yeah, she should. And anyone who wants to follow anything happening with Ukraine, specifically on military operations, she does an excellent job tracking it daily. Like all day long, she's tracking every single
Give me her
drone
name again,
attack.
because I missed it.
Monique Kamara.
Monique Amaro. Okay, everyone will follow her as well. And hey, David Brown. Hey, Dana DuPont, and lots of other people joining. Let's get into the Trump Tyranny Tracker for day 152 of the Trump administration. There's so much news that I feel like we have to touch on some of that. Let's talk a little bit about Iran. It looks possibly that we'll be heading into conflict without any congressional approval. Could be this weekend, could be longer. What's your take on where we're heading?
I think my take is that we are probably, I don't see Netanyahu letting Trump off the hook with this. I don't see this playing out 2 weeks. I think it'll probably be much, much sooner. Interestingly, the Russians yesterday, citing one of their Russian assets in the U.S., had the main story for a few hours that Trump is about to attack Iran this weekend, and that he was waiting for the markets to close so he can do it, on a Friday night. Interestingly enough, this goes to this guy, Seymour Hersh, who is one of their, influence agents, assets.
The Russians
And
influence agents, would you say?
yeah, for a long
Absolutely. That's what I
time.
was going to say.
And I questioned because he has exclusive reporting for his sources, and Russia had, a method of handing over exclusive reporting to their Western influence agents, and then they write up something, and then Russia will recycle it back into their information space, for their domestic purposes.
And
So it'll
Tulsi
be
Gabbard could have
interesting
quite
to see.
insight. She could have a lot of insight that she could be feeding the Kremlin right now, because she is, of course, still the head of the intelligence services. So, that could be finding its way through Russia back to some of these influences. But sorry, I interrupted you there. You were going to say something about the timing, no?
Yeah, no, so I think, we could go literally any day. I think it is going to happen. Another interesting thing, the New York Post reported what we've been talking about all week, which is that Russia, has launched information operations to divide, and it's Russia and Iran working jointly to divide the MAGA base, and that they've redirected all their bots and trolls. And I'll add, they didn't, I'll add, there again, Western influence agents like Tucker Carlson, Bannon, and you just see a whole slew of them, who are just standing solely. Even Matt Gaetz, he right now is doing everything to stop this war, not for the purposes because he cares about a war, but I'm sure that Russia, has handed him, talking points to push, which are very similar to the propaganda that they're pushing domestically in their country. So it's a fascinating situation. I pray for our troops. That's the only thing,
Yeah, it could be a go anyway. There's no way to know whether this lands up in a quagmire or just a quick surgical strike. We just don't know, and that's what's so scary about it. It just anything could happen, and we'll keep monitoring it for you here. Let's move on to the other big story of the day. A federal appeals court has ruled that Trump can continue using California National Guard troops in LA to suppress protests while Governor Gavin Newsom's legal challenge proceeds. This is a decision by the 3-judge panel, which includes 2 Trump-appointed judges, and it sided with Trump's claim that he acted within his authority under the Insurrection Act. This decision essentially greenlights federal military intervention in a state whose governor opposes it. Almost exact opposite of what the lower court ruling by Justice Breyer came up with. This is the exact opposite of this one. So where are we at now?
I mean, Newsom is appealing it, and I'm sure this will end up in the Supreme
Yeah,
Court. I mean, this is a very dangerous decision because it basically greenlights, Trump to use the military against American citizens. And we saw right after the decision that he, came out and said, "Oh, wonderful. Now I'm going to expand it to other blue cities across the country." So, I mean, the fact that this court ruled like this. And again, we don't know what ultimately the Supreme Court will rule, but we've always had, you know, a precedent where U.S. military is not used on U.S. soil against Americans, and the National Guard is only used when it's in conjunction, coordinated between the state governor and the federal government. So, I mean, this really takes us down a dangerous path. We'll see where it goes. It will continue being litigated up to the Supreme Court.
I think you're right about it going to the Supreme Court. Do you see any parallels in Russia, in your extensive knowledge of Russia, where the military would have been used in domestic cases like this in Russia?
Well, they don't use per se the military, but they use Rosgvardia. They use like they have their secret police. They have FSB. I mean, they have various branches because don't forget, Russia for a century has had this system of a police state. So I mean, they already have all the mechanisms.
Right.
Here, Trump is just trying to establish these mechanisms using what he has until he develops his police state, by deputizing various random, criminals to carry out right now ICE, tasks, immigration tasks, but then it can be shifted over later. So for Russia, they already have the system in place for a long time. There wasn't really much to do for
Right.
them.
Right. But here we are building it in the United States. You mentioned this immediate escalation that Donald Trump is now pursuing after his court battle supposed victory. He's already threatened to deploy troops in other Democratic-led cities if local police can't get their job done or get the job done. This represents, another clear attempt to leverage this legal precedent into a broader federal military presence. But it's also directly, being targeted at blue states. I mean, this is weaponizing the National Guard against a political party or political affiliation. It's quite dramatic.
And not only the National Guard, I mean, the Marines. Well, again, why? I keep asking this question. Why do we have a battalion of Marines, deployed on U.S. soil? And I mean, apparently, not only, forget even the authoritarian aspect.
Mm.
We're paying upwards of like $100-something million for Marines to be deployed in California to do what? Arrest a veteran? I mean, this is what they did. They arrested a veteran.
Exactly.
And, I'm not arrested. I apologize. They detained a veteran. I mean, so what is it that we're even paying money for?
Also, don't we have a
So
war? A couple of wars we should be fighting in the Europe. We take away our troops from there to deploy them in California. We could have something in the Middle East, and we got troops in California instead of helping Ukraine. I mean, yeah,
this is
yeah,
what they train for, to go overseas.
yeah.
There's not one Marine that has ever trained, like, oh, yippee, I'm going to be deployed on U.S. soil to go arrest or fight my fellow Americans. Like, this is not what the Marine Corps is.
Absolutely. Moving on to the next story on Truth Social. It should be called Gaslight Social. Trump is demanding the appointment of a special prosecutor to investigate the 2020 election, repeating his debunked claims of total fraud and insisting he won in a landslide. This comes as he simultaneously faces his own legal challenges while wielding presidential power to potentially weaponize the Justice Department against his enemies. What is this? This is just another, Russian attempt or something attempt to just deflect.
I don't know as much if it's to deflect as they're really, preparing to open up sham investigations. And just to get to the name, I when he had named it Truth Social, in Russia, going back to the Soviet days, one of the oldest outlets is Pravda,
Mm.
which is truth. So I, at the time, said that
He's not being
he
propped up.
named his Truth Social after the Russian communist, who had the Pravda outlet, which is, I mean, frankly, the worst conspiracy propaganda. But as far as this, you know what? If it was in 2017 and he said this, I would dismiss it. It wouldn't even be in my tracker, honestly, if it
Yeah.
was in 2017. But the fact that now you see him not only arresting and detaining Democratic lawmakers, you see Kash Patel basically now say he's opening an investigation to quote unquote, Chinese election interference in 2020. You see investigations being opened into Biden aides over the bullshit that he used auto pen and that he was incapacitated and they're the ones who did the work. So, I mean, you see him opening investigations into anything. So, in this case, I would take it serious because, I mean, frankly, besides the fact that he wants to rewrite, history, to claim that the election was stolen, which he knows it wasn't. I mean, he knows very clearly the election was never stolen and that Biden legitimately won. But we will see a weaponization of this, and I guarantee you in a month, a few weeks, we will be here saying, you remember that conversation last month? Because this is where he's headed.
They should open up an investigation into 2024 and the current election infrastructure. All my investigation is pointing that there are so many vulnerabilities in the supposed air-gapped voting machines that we really need to get to the bottom of this before we get to another election, because there seems to be all sorts of vulnerabilities through the power supply unit, through Starlink, you name it, that these aren't actually individual machines that are operating on their own. They're interconnected all the time. And if that's the case, well, that requires a lot of answers to a lot of questions, especially when it's involving people like Leonard Leo, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. I mean, it's all the same characters showing up in every story. I mean, this is, to me, worthy of an investigation just for the future of elections. But of course, he's not likely to do that, is he?
We unfortunately have no investigators. Our investigators right now are, focused. Every single agency is focused on either skewing intelligence to suit his purpose or opening sham investigations. You see them very heavily going after and trying to dismantle the Democratic Party between investigations into Act Blue, into Indivisible, the infrastructure of the Democratic Party. So, I mean, this is, definitely, we're not open. I can promise you, maybe in 2029,
Yeah.
2030, whenever this, Agent Orange gets out of here, and if we get our agencies back, then maybe we can actually have like a normal truth and reconciliation committee so we can go over everything that has happened to date and make sure everyone's held accountable.
There's another story that's also quite alarming. It involves Trump's executive order targeting the International Criminal Court. Microsoft has suspended the email account of prosecutor Karim Khan, who was investigating Israel for war crimes. Though quickly reversed for other ICC officials, this has sparked panic across Europe about U.S. control over critical digital infrastructure and its potential weaponization against allies. And of course, it's not the first time Microsoft and Israel have had some connection.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing is reprehensible because you have not only Trump, using the tech companies to build a surveillance state in the United States, but you also have them now using these same companies to go after, Europe and God knows who else in the future, our allies. And the fact that, Microsoft would step in under pressure and suspend an email of someone who is prosecuting. I'd like to remind everyone that, the ICC issued arrest warrants, rightfully so, for Putin and Belova for kidnapping upwards of 20,000, Russia claims 700,000 Ukrainian children. So to go after this institution, I mean, frankly, there's no difference between Trump or Putin. I mean, they're both doing the same exact thing to delegitimize this International Criminal Court and other Western institutions. So
It's really appalling. I wanted to get your take, and I didn't prepare any of this with you, but we saw the polling yesterday out of Hungary, looking like Viktor Orban is not doing so well in the polling. Do you have a sense of how that could play out if he's down 16 points right now in the polling? Is there elections? Are the elections still free and fair enough to elect another person into the presidency there?
Well, the elections are fair and free enough when the majority of the public is woke,
Mm,
as Republicans like to say, and gets involved. Because you know what, minus Russia, and again with Russia, you really don't have people involved in changing anything domestically. But I mean, if a majority of people come out and Orban and his, party officials have been there have been so many scandals swirling around them that you see people are finally coming together. We saw protests last year, this year. So we'll see what happens. I do have faith in the Hungarian people, and I do think, that if enough people actually pay attention and do come out for election, that you need the overwhelming numbers, because if
yeah.
it's just, a little bit, then they can easily adjust it. But if you have the majority of Hungarians coming out, you know, they can change the direction of their country. And we saw it with Ukraine. I mean, the first revolution, the election. Well, Yanukovych stole the election, and the Supreme Court had to step in. But it was only from the pressure of Ukrainians, that basically Yushchenko ended up. There was another, uh, a redo of the election, and Yushchenko ended up winning. So, I mean, when you have a mass population coming out, you can change the future.
Finally, on the tracker today, the US is pressuring NATO allies to limit focus on Ukraine in next week's summit communique, pushing for only a brief mention of Kyiv's defense capabilities while excluding any broad statement of support. This marks a sharp break from past summits where NATO strongly backed Ukraine's fight against Russia. This is dramatic because we are seeing, whether we like it or not, America is pulling away from Ukraine and moving towards Russia in this conflict.
Well, it's not that America's even pulling away. I mean, they already betrayed Ukraine, and frankly, Trump and Rubio and the rest of them could go to hell for what they've done. Because, I mean, short of supplying Russia with weapons, they've done everything to make sure that Russia gains an upper hand. But the problem is that now Trump is also pressuring our allies in Europe. And, my worry was that not only was he going to use tariffs as a way to try to break support and blackmail them, and threaten them to break support for Ukraine, but you see this continuing, pattern that he's trying to interfere. And it's the same that goes with the surveillance and our, tech companies. Like, one thing, what he's doing domestically, this is for us to, deal with. But then when he starts exporting U.S. power to try to, give Russia a win in Ukraine, or to pressure allies. I mean, there was a few months ago, they were pressuring UK and EU to stop delivering weapons or lower their weapons deliveries to Ukraine. So you see him using the levers of the US government to now do everything to force Europe to try to, push his policies. Is it going to work? No, because I can tell you every single European capital right now is sounding the alarm, and not only sounding the alarm, they're taking steps to secure against a potential Russia invasion into a NATO state. So, I mean, you have Poland, who right now is mining their borders, moving military assets around, and doing everything to secure the borders. You have the Baltics, who have been jointly working together to secure the borders. I mean, you have every country right now doing everything to prevent, a successful Russian attack and invasion of a NATO country. So, Trump can push what they want, but it just shows you where he is. I mean,
For sure. These summits, the one we just saw, the one in G7, where he really, he was unstable during that whole meeting, but then he also left early, avoiding any face-to-face time with Zelensky. Now, on top of that, NATO is going to be lukewarm on its comments around Ukraine. You can really see how Trump is single-handedly, withdrawing from the traditional value-driven alliances that we have, like the G7, which are about liberal democracies, or NATO, which is about our mutual defense. It really is kind of stark the way he's doing this in real time. And just last week, he told Zelensky not to fire at Russian oil and energy resources. And then what does Russia do? It attacks Zelensky's oil resources. This is basically protecting Russia's oil supply. Like, this is unbelievable, considering, we're at odds with this country. This is our adversary.
Oh, we are. He isn't.
Yeah,
For
true.
him, this is his ally. And I mean, G7, frankly, thank goodness. I mean, he ran off back to the US because that was, an embarrassment. He literally just went to lobby for Putin there. And a little airtime that he got, he stood there trying to lobby for Putin, why it should be turned back to G8, lying. And everyone knows that Russia was kicked out of G8 because of invading Ukraine.
Exactly.
And he's lying. And frankly, at this point, it should be the G6, and the rest of the members need to reconsider and now remove us out of the equation. But it also goes to something bigger, that at the same time, you have Hegseth, who didn't attend the Contact Alliance, which is, 30 plus countries who discuss, weapons allocations for Ukraine. You have the Pentagon, who's discussing withdrawing troops from Europe later on this year, and they want to begin the process. And you have Europe already, coming to the realization that they are going to have to cover what is happening. And things are so stark in Europe that we had discussed it prior, that Germany, because of the reports they were all getting, Germany is sending 5,000 troops to Lithuania to protect against a potential invasion. Wow. When has Germany deployed troops? And frankly, if you were to go back a century ago, you don't want German troops. And the fact that now, they've been always careful of that, not to move their troops around Europe, but they're stepping in to fill the void of what the United States used to do. And then we have the situation where the French might actually be fighting American troops if Trump continues with his annexation of Greenland, threats. So
such dramatic geopolitical shifts happening right before our eyes every day. And we're covering it for you here on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. We're live every day at 2 p.m. And on Tuesday nights, Olga and I host a really exciting seminar series that I hope everyone can join. If you are a paid member of either of our websites, you get free access to this seminar. We're entering the 4th week, but anyone could still join because each unit is self-contained. And this week's going to be really interesting. So I hope everyone joins. There's a form and instructions on how to get involved on both of our sites right now at narativ.org, narativ.org, or at the Trump Tyranny Tracker.substack.com. Something like that, right? Yeah. And also Unmasking Russia at .substack.com. Olga, I know you got lots to do this weekend, but I hope you get some time off because you deserve it. And I hope you get to unplug a little bit and enjoy your weekend. And the same to you at home, everybody.
Not happening this weekend unless, we do have 100 plus degree heat wave coming. So maybe they'll knock out our power so I can actually unplug from the computer.
Scares me. I hope there's no power outage in that temperature. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll be back in just over 35 minutes with the 5 Stack with Dean Blundell. We'll see you then. Otherwise, stay safe and be smart, and let's get through this together. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye. Have a good weekend.